Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us here. Man, what a show. What a show we have for you guys today. No special guests, nothing. Just all of us ranting and raving, all of our thoughts, comments, concern are overall taking the temperature of the sport of drag racing like we like to do. We spent the last several weeks with like one barn burner guest after another. We got Clay Milliken up in here. We got Pat Musey up in here. We got Tom Gunner up in here. We got all these, Clay. We got all this incredible stuff happening, but we don't feel sometimes like we get to, rant and rave like I like to do sometimes. So anyways, I appreciate you all joining us every Wednesday here. Sorry I missed you last week. I was legit sick. I think this is the first time we're 300 plus episodes into this deal. To be honest, I think that was the first time I ever tapped out because I just couldn't do it. I was sick. And, when you have kids and they bring home all this stuff from the schoolyard, it's unbelievable. Mike and JT can relate. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyways, JT don't see much of his kids, but that's another story. Anyways, mine bring home a lot of illnesses, it seems like. Anyways, sick. I couldn't get it done. And shout out to the guys for encouraging me to punt because I don't think it would have been our best effort. But anyways, appreciate you guys all being here. Remember to click like, click share, click subscribe if you're joining along. We broke 10,000 subscribers on YouTube a couple weeks ago. 500,000 some odd followers. I think we're encroaching quickly on 600,000 followers on Facebook. It's incredible how fast. So thank you guys, seriously, because we love doing this, but we really can't do it without each and every one of you. And I genuinely feel what I say there in that pre-recorded bit on the beginning of the show. I believe it. I truly believe that drag racing is the great American motorsport. I think this is an incredible community that has long since not really gotten what it deserves. It's not gotten the shine it deserves. It's not had the fanfare that it deserves. And we're really at a high tide moment, in my opinion, in the sport of drag racing right now. And we should all, I can't say enough about it. It's a lot going on in the sport. Holy moly. Somehow it's the freaking middle of the year, June. MPK, No Prep Kings, kicked off their 6th season. This past weekend, National Trail Raceway in Ohio, the NHRA tried their damnedest to get one in at New England Dragway in Epping, New Hampshire. War in the Woods, small tire, no prep, booming. I can't hardly keep up with how much drag racing is going on in the country right now. I really, truly feel, despite the naysayers, I know there are people out there, I know there are folks that are concerned, but I think that concern is unfounded. I genuinely believe this is a fantastic time in the sport of drag racing. We're going to talk about that at length here today. Before we get any further, let's introduce my cohorts here on the Wes Buck Show. The one, the only Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson. What's up, dude? You guys doing all right?
We're back.
Yeah,
we're back. What's new?
That was a team effort last week. We all like
screen. Your head's huge, Mike.
Yeah, it is. It's huge anyway.
It's always huge.
This is scale. This is 100% scale.
I don't know that there's anything I could do to match it.
You can't. It's genetics,
I think Peyton Manning's probably his biological father.
Yeah, that worked out great.
Sorry, Charles.
Hey, Peyton, if that's true, man, hit me up. I need
right.
Yeah, I need in on that inheritance.
Yeah, we need an adoption papers or getting drafted right now. Are you guys as surprised as I am that it's somehow the middle of the year? I mean, I say this all the time. It's 300 some odd episodes, 304, 305. What is this, JT? 304?
Yeah, 304. Yeah.
304. Yeah. I mean, it seems like I say this every year, somehow, some way. It is incredible to find ourselves here 6 months into the season. We've been racing for a while now. World Series of Pro Mod, well in the rearview mirror. NHRA Gator Nationals, well in the rearview mirror. The No Prep King Series has started, as I mentioned in the intro. I mean, we're in like full song of the racing season. And it shocks me every year. I know that it's like a whole thing, right? And we hear Alan Reinhart talk about it all the time on the NHRA broadcast. It's also, what was in Beef, the Netflix documentary, or not documentary, the Netflix
No, there
show
definitely
that,
was a documentary. It'd be crazy. If it was.
it would be crazy if that was a documentary. It sounds like something that could happen though. But it is crazy how the older you get, how it does seem to feel like you just throttle up. Like one thing.
Somebody on a lawnmower right across the front of the office, like
driving it,
like
That's
riding
some
around on it.
Kirksville, Missouri
We should
shit
do an
I've ever
episode
didn't have a
where
deck on
JT
didn't
just
have a
turned the
deck.
camera around one week and just let us see what's going on around the office.
For those that don't know, the original, not the original, but the second official, well, no, my God, the Drag Illustrated office in Northeast Missouri. We've had a lot of offices over the years, to be totally honest. But anyways, is currently right next to a kind of a transient hotel and the public defender's office.
Is that the word for it?
I think that's the word for it.
The
Right?
Shady Side Inn.
Yeah, it's a little rough around the edges, man.
I love
New
it.
ownership though. Last time I was in town, it looked like they painted the place. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know, man. They painted it like yellow, or I mean, like greenish. Yeah, like they
Lime
they
green.
bought they bought it the same place that I think Orlando or Valdosta did for their stands. I mean, it's that color.
A hotel.
Yeah,
It
and I
is,
mean,
yeah.
I didn't even understand. Like,
You can't
you
miss
go
it,
to-
man.
you
That
go to
way
look
you
at
can see
you go
it.
to look at paint, and you're like sitting there, and you're like, well, look at that kind of neon pukish green looking. I'm gonna put that on a hotel.
That's the play, man.
Who says that?
No, hey, you know what it really was? Guaranteed it was on sale.
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
That was the paint that was on sale by like the drum. You could buy a 55-gallon drum of neon green paint for like $18.
Yeah,
And
somebody mixed the wrong drum for
Yep, 100%.
repainting the school or something. And
I always think that
shit,
people go
gotta
in
get rid
there,
of this.
they and you get confronted by like the wall of swatches, and you think, I'm gonna paint my house green, and you grab like just green, just regular green, and you're thinking that that's gonna be the deal. No, it's more nuanced than that. You've got to have a shade. It's got to be called like mystic vapor or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it can't just be
So true.
straight green. That's a problem when you start putting on buildings or
No, it's got to be
grandstand.
like faint fall leaf.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or something like, because you can't just go, yeah. If you roll up to Home Depot and say, hey, bro, you got any green? I'm fitting to paint my house this weekend.
Yeah,
You're going to, it's going to look
300
like,
of them.
Yeah.
Well, it really
300
set this
shades.
place off too. Is then they did red doors.
No,
I
that was
mean,
awesome.
it's- yeah.
It's like a Christmas vibe.
In some parts of the country, I think that's like a bad indicator, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think red door is the
Maybe
play.
Yeah, maybe like a Costa
Oh, no, I'm
Rica
thinking of
Christmas-
red lights.
Christmas or something.
Red
Yeah,
light
or-
district, right? I'm thinking red door, red light. It all runs.
All
together,
right.
whatever.
Well,
Anyways,
Yeah.
that was a tangent
Sorry.
on a tangent on
Yeah,
a
sorry.
tangent. But no, hey Wes, you were talking about time. I think it does speed up like in Interstellar, like as we get older. And
Oh, there's no doubt, man.
That's some of the perspective of all these races going on is just that, you know, we're all getting older and it seems like we can't even keep up with all the shit that's going on. And it's all packed into one weekend.
if we literally sent, I mean, I was thinking about it this weekend, and I got it again, and I feel, and I asked the guys before we started the show, I do not want to beat a dead horse, but I do find it, I'm conflicted. Okay, I'll bare my soul here. I am shocked that there is this notion that exists. Maybe it's only on social media, but I am genuinely shocked that there is this notion that exists that drag racing is in some way, shape, or form suffering or struggling. I mean, because I feel like I can't escape it. I mean, there's so much racing going on that it is virtually impossible to absorb it all. I mean, I can't keep up with the amount. I mean, if I'm a chassis builder, I mean, I'm looking for a beach house right now. I mean, there is a lake house and a beach house, maybe, and a boat, maybe a boat for each spot. I mean, there are so many race cars. I was just talking to Tom Gunner. There were 140 cars at War in the Woods, right? And now that's not necessarily a chassis shop boom type of situation, but 140 cars at War in the Woods, a small tire no prep race at a nitty gritty little 8th mile drag strip. You got the no prep king season kicking off with God knows how much high dollar machinery on the property of that facility. National Trail Raceway in Ohio, NHRAs in New England, the cavalcade of cars going on in Norwalk, all sorts of little 8th mile Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods. There was what's that race where Jamie won that cruised on Bob Harris and Jason Harris's car? Roxborough. That's out in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, no, I don't know the name of it right off the top of my head. But
Roxborough.
your example that you're making is based on car count, based on number of races, number of type of races. Yeah, and I think the argument that we're seeing online is based
Roxborough
on
Motorsports Park.
Yeah, that's the name of the track. I don't know the name of the event, but I think online we're seeing people talk about the stands and seeing empty stands and thinking the sport is suffering from that. But I think you have to look at it from this perspective of how many people are going racing every weekend, how many cars are filling these places up, and how many different levels of the industry are being touched by that, not just fan attendance.
And I think, but here's the thing, there's considerable fanfare. Like, let's not pretend that people aren't coming to these events. I mean, that in this whole thing, and they are going to these events, but it's a smaller venue. The argument to me always comes up when we go to big tracks,
these big venues, when we go to ZMAX, when we go back to Chicago, like we did a couple weeks ago, and half the grandstands are closed off or whatever the situation may be. And these places that were built during the boom of the 90s, 2000s, and these NASCAR, every motorsport thought they needed these places to pack them in. It's changed. We were talking earlier today about that too. About the perfect example is NASCAR taking the All-Star race and going back to North Wilkesboro. They actually went back in time, reverted, went to a track that they thought they had outgrown and that was no longer big enough to hold them. Now it fits them perfectly.
There's so many layers to this onion, in my opinion, because it's like the economy, like the market speaks, right? These things happen. And I do think you're right. I labored over that over the weekend. Basically, the catalyst for this particular conversation was a post I saw on Facebook that was talking about those aforementioned closed off set of grandstands at the Chicago event, the Route 66 Nationals, in Illinois. First time the NHRA had been to that track since 2019. And by all accounts, a massive success for the NHRA. Like, I've talked to multiple people at NHRA, and they've all told me the same thing. Ticket sales way up, very happy with how things went.
2019 when they were there.
Up over 2019, very happy with the return to the area. They had to open up additional bleachers. I mean, it looked fantastic on television. By all accounts, it was a big, big, big success. But there's this belief system that there is, we got this huge problem we've got to fix. And I'm the first one to acknowledge room for improvement, especially when it comes to the NHRA.
That whole scenario you just laid out was compared to an aerial photo from the very first race at that event, which I believe was in 1998.
Those photos can be misleading as well, though. I mean, okay, when did you take that photo at so-and-so event? Because if you're going to compare one place to the other.
Time of the day,
yeah. And it's like say you took it, you didn't take it Saturday afternoon. You took it Saturday afternoon when it's completely packed out at the other place.
Right.
I mean, you're comparing that. But
Mike's talking about they took a photo from the first event.
And
open a venue like that.
Saying,
oh my God. Yeah.
But I think I saw the post you're talking about that had empty stands for the next photo. And I'm going, when did you take the photo though? Nobody's running or whatever. I don't know. I just, and anymore, you can get so much on your electronics. You have Flow Racing, you have these TV broadcasts and everything. Yep. And man, if you can stay at home and hit your kid's ball game and then still catch the race, and there's a lot of things that go into that anymore. So,
this
is the drive down the road and watch football, drag racing, whatever. I mean, it's
simultaneously
down across the board. So absolutely, we've done it. Right?
No, I mean, we've done it. So, I mean, I guess the point that I want to make is that I think that there's a lot of conversation that we can have about this, but I think that it's important that these things get discussed. And I think it's important because first and foremost, there's most assuredly room for improvement. And maybe we can talk about that. Maybe we can talk about that today and talk about the areas where we can improve and where we can improve the drag racing live event. Right. But I don't think we're doing ourselves justice necessarily as a sport to have all these incredible things happening, but be laser focused on a section of the grandstands in Chicago not being opened. And to Mike's point earlier, participation wise, I do feel like our sport is rocking and rolling. I mean, if you look around in a PDRA just last weekend, their trip to Norwalk, they had 350 some odd race cars. And if you've been to a PDRA national event, you know that these are like the highest level of race cars. These are not, home built, garage built type operations. These are the best money can buy across the board, from junior dragster to Pro Boost and Pro Nitrous. Everybody's got high level equipment, and that trend exists across so many sanctions and series. I mean, Pro Mod is something that we talk about a lot here, but I mean, you talk about something that's healthy, holy moly. I mean, Pro Mod, there is so much Pro Mod racing going on. It's really hard to keep tabs of all of it. I mean, there's so much stuff happening, these various shootouts, various touring series that are kind of regionalized or whatever. NMCA, Northeast Outlaws, PDRA, Midwest Drag Racing Series was in Noble, Oklahoma this past weekend. I mean, there's so much racing, we can't even hardly name all the different alphabet soup of events. But there's also these big events, NHRA. I mean, I really hated to see the NHRA get washed out in New England, because I think that would have been, that's one of my favorite events that happened on the NHRA tour because of the photos it produces. Because it's just like it's a classic big wedding, small church, all these guys rolling into a track that can barely handle them, fanfare, people backed up in traffic. It's a great, great.
The little bit of racing they did get in, the stands were packed, and there were so many people. Bananas. That place, if you pulled up NHRA TV at any point during the past couple of days, it was just rain, and there's people sitting in the stands. I mean, there was like a good crowd, and
they have an incredible fan base up there. But I wonder, the reason I wanted to bring this up, talking about fan attendance, because that seems to be what people are concerned about. For me, I can't help but feel like motorsports are really enjoying a moment in the sun. Like it's starting to become a little bit more part of pop culture. I mean, you see like Formula One, the F1 Grand Prix in Miami. Oh my God, like every star and celebrity racing is kind of part of the conversation. And it feels like it's been a while since racing has been so prevalent. Like,
yeah,
you guys agree? Like, I feel like I hear people talk about racing, and maybe not always drag racing, but racing. I used to feel when someone in my neighborhood or somebody that I met at a restaurant or whatever asked me what I did for a living, I would kind of not like, whenever I said racing, I kind of felt like they looked at me like I had three heads. Not the case anymore, right? I mean, if you tell someone you work in motorsports, they're familiar to at some level. It may not be drag racing. They may not know who Todd Tutterow is, right? But they certainly know about drag racing, or they know about racing, or they've seen Street Outlaws, or they've watched the Netflix documentary on the F1 stuff, Drive to Survive. They know about racing, and it feels
I probably get asked more now than I ever have.
Agreed,
and not just like No Prep Kings or Street Outlaw, because that did move the needle, and people were asking us a lot about that around here. And but now I'm getting asked a lot about NHRA teams too. So I mean, that's good.
It is good. I mean, and I just think that we have to be a couple of things. Mike mentioned something that really, really struck me, and it was the NASCAR's decision to take their all-star race to North Wilkesboro. This was a track that had been previously shuttered, right? Like they weren't even, this wasn't on the tour.
It was actually, I don't know all the details, but I think roughly somewhere in the late 90s, maybe even mid 90s, that was when NASCAR was deciding that they were too big and needed to grow out of the southern routes and expand to like California. I actually think they took that race date and gave it to Fontana, California. If I could be wrong about that, but I think that I did hear that in the lead up to the All-Star race. So they slowly took the races from the traditional southern tracks around this area and moved them all around the country. And it worked for a while, but now it's like they're having to go back in time a little bit and look at what used to work, look at where their hardcore fan base still is, and again, create that image of a big wedding in a small church. It may be even fewer people than they had at Charlotte Motor Speedway or wherever. I think, didn't they move the All-Star race to Texas a couple of years to try something different there and put it in that small, old, worn out venue? I mean, they did refurbish it, extensively, and it creates this Saturday night party atmosphere.
I think a lot of it is just like knowing your audience.
Yeah.
I think back on this, when I reflect on the whole situation, I think about racing. I think about, there is an economic boom, right? Money's easy to get. Money's moving around. These construction projects are happening, and they're building the Z-Maxes. They're building Route 66 Raceway. They're building these mega facilities, right? And it's during this, they're kind of it's a kind of, unfortunately, the American way, right? I mean, you see it all over America during any sort of like economic downtime or recession. Like all these people that have gotten in over their heads, they bought a house they couldn't afford, they're driving vehicles they can't afford, and they're banking on a home run. They're banking on good times lasting forever. And we know historically that's just not the case. And I think sometimes we outgrew our britches, so to speak. And I think what we're seeing is this return to our roots. I mean, there are a lot of NASCAR facilities, for instance, that have removed grandstands. They've reduced the capacity of their venues on purpose. And I think sometimes, I mean, drag racing, we just haven't gotten to that point. I mean, some of these venues are too big. And it's, I mean, if you compare it to stick and ball sports, which people love to do a lot, and I'm not talking NFL. I mean, obviously that's a little bit of an anomaly, but if you look at a lot of like an NBA team or some of these other venues, it's not 50,000 people. It's not 100,000 people.
I think
it's
an NBA arena is like 18,000,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 18 or 20,000, which is not impossible attendance wise for a drag race, for a motorsports event. So I just think that the size of the venues kind of, we outgrew, or excuse me, we let our alligator
Delusions of
mouth
grandeur.
kind of overload our tadpole
Yeah.
ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we go, you know what? We're going to build this super facility. And again, you're banking on best case scenario, sellout situations. And I don't know, man. And I've said this 5,000 times on this very program. It is, I want to see Garth Brooks play Billy Bob's. I don't really care to go see him at some mega arena. I don't want to see him on his stadium tour. I want to see a guy play, you know, a country music superstar play in a nitty gritty small venue that's intimate. That's what drag racing is, man. Our sport plays better at smaller venues. Like I've been really conflicted.
You're seeing
Agreed.
more and more of that. And I think the success of these events, even No Prep Kings, they go to National Trail. They go to, I mean,
but we got to get the racers to buy
Alabama,
in. Because
right?
weren't you, I was kind of like, did you see that quote card we put out on Drag Illustrated Social, Sean Langdon, talking about the fans in New England? He was talking about, it was a great quote, like probably the best quote I've ever seen from Sean Langdon, like the best soundbite he's ever produced. He said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing here, when we do this because we love it, drag racing being this, the drivers, the crew, the tuners, we love this sport. And when you go to a racetrack like New England Dragway, where the fans love it as much as you do, you're just inspired to put on as good of a show as possible. And I'm not saying the fans at ZMAX or the fans at the Strip at Las Vegas Motor Speedway or whatever aren't incredible fans. They absolutely are. But I think what he's really talking about is the environment that is created at a small venue. It's intimate. The fans are right there. It's not some sprawling facility that everything's all spread out and it takes you, 4 days in a covered wagon to get from the starting line to the pits. It's just a completely different atmosphere. In drag racing plays, we do our absolute best. Our sport looks its absolute best in that environment. But the problem is that, I mean, look at the entry list for New England Dragway, the New England Nationals this past weekend. They didn't have a full field in Top Fuel Funny Car, had a full field in Pro Mod, but they because of the facilities limitations, pit wise, they're not able to bring like their full cast of characters. Like Pro Stock doesn't run that event. They were planning on running Mountain Motor Pro Stock, but couldn't get enough commitments. And this is where the racers, they have to take some accountability for this, right? Because they want to go to ZMAX. They want to park on perfectly flat pavement, right? They don't want to deal with any water in their pits. They don't want any sand. But we kind of there has to be a meeting in the middle. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because the racers want to go to grade A, picture perfect facilities that are too big for someone to be successful, a promoter to be successful, the event to be successful. But that's exactly the facilities that we need to go to. Do you guys follow what I'm saying? Like,
you remember when I had the bar at the first bar, Smitty's, and it was kind of a dive bar, narrow. You couldn't pack a whole bunch of people in there, but everybody was so close when they were in there that everybody was in on each other's conversations, and you'd make friends with the guy next year.
Don't think for a second a drag strip ain't a bar,
right? That's what I'm saying. And it's the same thing. And then I built the new bar, which was quite a bit bigger and had everybody spread out. And I mean, if you took you're like, say you go in there and you go, oh, it's pretty dead tonight. But if you put all those people in the old bar, everybody's having a hoot, because they're all there close together.
Disclaimer: yes, JT at one point did own a bar, multiple bars, and it scares us as much as it probably scares the audience as well.
It does.
Not as much as my wife.
I just think that,
or your kids.
Yeah,
these are some of the things that have to be talked about, because racers, we go to an event, right? And we, like I said, we want everything to be 10s across the board. The pit parkings needs to be perfect. Track needs to be perfect. It's got to be perfectly, all these things. But there's got to be some conversations about how we can make this work for everybody, right? How we can go to venues. Yeah, there's going to be some give and take. Like, we got to go to facilities that we can fill. We've got to go facilities that have strong fan bases. We have to go to places where there is a possibility to come out on top, right? To win, because that's what everybody needs to win. The racers need to win.
You know who's doing that on the biggest stage is No Prep Kings. There's a lot, like the War in the Woods, all these no prep deals, small tire deals. They're all doing it to some degree. But to me, No Prep Kings it checks all the boxes of everything you just said.
It really does, man.
And they had their first race this past weekend. The big draft happened, and I think we got to start off. We got to start off talking about No Prep Kings, the new season, the draft.
Well, okay. So there's a lot of ways we can take all this.
All the drama from there.
Real quick, JT, let's pay some bills. I want to remind everybody that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seat belts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them we sent you. We have a brand new story up about their new drag boot, which has been a huge hit in the industry. Shout out to Kayla Zadell, John Gentry, and the gang at Stroud for putting that piece together. It's up on dragillustrated.com right now if you want to check it out. Guys, Mike, to your point, No Prep Kings season kicked off this past weekend, National Trail Raceway, the start of the 6th season of this hit reality show. And as you mentioned, Mike, started off with the draft. Let's run through this. I guess right now, let's just talk about your guys' overall impression of the draft. There were 8 team captains. I'll actually pull those up here, one of which was a fan vote, which went to Daddy Dave Comstock. Lizzie and Musi were like locked in a razor close battle, which was announced, I guess, Thursday night about 8:30, 9 o'clock. News broke that Daddy Dave had won the popular vote. It felt like waiting for election results, to be honest.
Right.
Like, it was, I mean, there are all these posts on social and I'm getting texts. You hear anything? You hear anything? Anyways,
well, this is all like, let's preface all of this. I think it's interesting the amount of access or news that's allowed to come out of these events now. And I think there's been a change in procedure or whatever on Pilgrim's part or Discovery or whoever makes these calls to allow all of this. Because I feel like in years past, they would have been making every effort to not even let us know who won the draft or what the teams are and who won the race. And now it's like with all the access and everyone's there streaming, live streaming, and they don't seem to be shutting any of this down. It's, again, you're just like, you're watching the racing and watching this unfold live. And then, you've got this TV show coming in a month or two.
I watched the whole race. You know what I mean? Like, I watched virtually every round of racing, which
2 years ago you couldn't do that.
You couldn't do that. Yeah.
You could somewhat do it last year. So I just think it's really interesting that we're all watching this and following it.
Do you think it's kind of an acceptance by the group that this is racing and that people want to know what happened right now? That it's like,
it's almost impossible to prevent.
Well, and I think they realize that they probably couldn't stop it. I mean, someone in the stands has got a phone or got their phone out, they're going to record it. And
also, just like the draft itself, it dominated the mind space or whatever you want to say. Everyone's thoughts were about the draft going into the event, had everybody voting online and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Then you go in, then you have this whole social media following all weekend for the actual race. Then you turn around and you've got a TV show on in, whatever it takes, a month or two. So it's like they get it. They're like triple dipping really is what they did leading up to this event. So I think it's smart. I actually think it's smart because then you get like a pop when the race happens and you get another pop when it airs on TV.
Well, and the bigger stars they make of their racers, if they allow them to put some of this stuff on their social medias and stuff like
That's
that,
a good
the
point,
bigger
man.
stars that they make out of these people, the bigger hit the TV show will be, right?
And social media followings, these individual drivers have gotten so big.
Huge.
Why not leverage that? Why not take advantage of that?
Well, it goes back to that example that I like to make all the time about the NBA is bigger because of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Steph Curry. Like, they've leveraged the power of those stars. And I think that's something that the NHRA hasn't done as effectively. Admittedly, I think they've had less stars in recent years. I mean, I think it's pretty common belief set that John Force is like the superstar of all of the NHRA, and everyone pales in comparison to him. But the man's 72 years old. He's not active on social media, right? I mean, they have a significant following with John Force Racing's like team pages, but it's not like something that they've really embraced, in my opinion. And it's I find that interesting because, to your point, No Prep Kings, the show's, I'm sure every episode will perform better because of all the enthusiasm and interest that each one of these individual guys. I mean, if you run down the list, I did the research before we started the show, like Daddy Dave Comstock, 1.7 million followers on Facebook alone. Murder Nova, 3.5 million. Justin Swanstrom, 155,000. Ryan Martin, 340,000. Monza, who didn't even decided at the last minute not to participate, he's got 1.4 million followers. Lizzie,
all the OGs, man, they have huge,
yeah, they do
big followings. Lizzie, she's got over 500,000, and I think that you get all these fans that are invested, following along with their stories on social, and it's going to make I'm probably
Facebook
more
alone,
apt
right?
to what? That's Facebook alone. Yeah.
And these guys have huge Instagram followings and who knows what else. TikTok, that's a growing deal too. But these guys are using more and more. So it's really gotten, I bet if we sat down with Sam, which I think we intend to do at some point in the future, and picked his brain about all of this, that would be something that he pointed to as to why they're allowing these leaks, if you want to call it that, to happen.
Well, and these fans though, then they get on there and they feel like that they're, they've picked their driver already, right?
Right.
So now they're on that team, and then they're in the comments and they are. I mean, they go hard in those comment sections.
Oh, they're serious, man.
For their person. Yeah. I mean,
listen, I wasn't going to go this way immediately, but like, again, if you compare and contrast the following that people, and this is just Facebook alone, but like some of our sport's biggest stars, as far as NHRA drag racing is concerned, aren't even remotely close. I mean, Leah Pruitt, 265,000, Erica Enders, right shy of 200,000, John Force has 640,000 followers on Facebook. I mean, it's kind of interesting to me. And it's weird because both of these endeavors are on television and on television frequently, but it's the type of television. It's the kind of television. It's, the NHRA is more of a race report type of show, right? They're showing what happens at an event. They're not doing what Street Outlaws has done so effectively and tell the stories of these people and kind of get you hooked on who they are and what they're about and how they sound and how they behave in a confrontational situation and how they handle struggles and how they handle success. I mean, you learn about all the stars of No Prep Kings. You learn about all the stars of Street Outlaws. Whereas, you kind of watch what happens at an NHRA national event, and it's fantastic. I don't think the NHRA broadcast has ever been better than it is right now. It's as good as it's ever been for sure. But it is a much different product. And it does tell me, I mean, you think about the amount of time, right? How long has NHRA been on TV? Eons, right? I mean, years and years and years. You compare that to No Prep Kings. This has happened really fast. I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I point to a couple of these guys like Justin Swanstrom. I don't know that there is a better example of someone who's went from zero to hero in a shorter amount of time than that young man. I mean, it's a pretty incredible thing. I mean, he's done, in my opinion, pretty much all the right stuff. And if he couples, we can now kind of segue into the draft. I mean, if the season goes the way I think it's going to go for Justin Swanstrom, that kid may well be the star of that show when the smoke clears this fall. I really believe it.
Yeah, yep. He has. He's definitely got a good team. And he said he had some strategy going into it. Which I imagine had to be pretty stressful. And like guys actually dedicated time to, how is this going to go? How preparing for the draft? Because you can't just go, all right, I know my team. I'm going to pick this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. You have to be ready. You have to be flexible and be able to like adapt quickly and make a decision when the guy that you wanted gets taken right in front of you. Now you got to pivot and choose someone else that's still available and still put together a good team, and don't reach for someone too early.
Yeah.
If you think that person might be there a round or two later, and so you could stack your team up, man. I mean, it's literally just like
So you always drink too much when we have our drafts.
Yeah, or fantasy football.
Yeah.
Shocking.
And then I'm like, oh, my team's good, man. Like I'll pass on this pick.
I got to be honest, man. If you go through that, so the captains were Ryan Martin, Kai Kelly, Justin Swanstrom, Disco Dean Carnes, Mike Murillo, Sean Murdernova Ellington, Jay Bodie, and the People's Choice Daddy Dave Comstock. And if I go through the list of teams here, man, and we can name them all if you want. I don't know that it's necessary, but I think Justin Swanstrom has what appears to be what could very well be the most competitive team. I mean,
Ryan Martin's team is pretty darn good too.
Ryan Martin's team's good. Robin Roberts, obviously a hot rod. Giuseppe Gentile, very, very fast car. Rich Bruder, I think they've made a lot of progress over the offseason, a lot of testing. But I mean, golly, the thing that I noticed straight away is just the comments, the sense that was in picking all screw blower cars.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot more information. I mean, you've got a bunch of combinations. That's really smart.
Howe and Odom are teamed up, right?
Already.
And
so
now they're
Justin
on the same
Swanstrom
team.
and Callie Mills were kind of quasi teamed up because previously, this is their first season out with a screw blower.
It's so surprising to me going and looking at this and the way it played out that Odom was available in the third round for Swanstrom. Third round, third pick.
To me, that's entirely personality driven. I think John Odom is a kind of a polarizing guy. I don't know him personally, but just based on social commentary, I mean, he's kind of like there's people that like him and there's people that hate him. There's very little middle ground. And I think that's a really interesting thing. Kai Kelly, I was glad to see him get Lizzie. Like, I know that there would have been a great storyline probably having, her be a team captain, especially with all that she's contending with right now. But it is interesting because you got Kai with a screw blower.
He switched
2
combos.
nitrous cars.
It would make sense if they still had the same combo, right?
Right. Makes less sense. But I mean, I think one thing you saw with Kai Kelly's team, he picked the homies for the most part. I mean, he got Lizzie, he got David Gates. Those are teams, cars that he obviously is, teamed up with historically. One of the things that I thought was really interesting and I found to kind of tell the tale of this whole situation was a post from little legend Bobby Ducati, who was on Jay Bodie's team and went in the third round as well, right behind Nate Saylor and Mike Bowman. He said, man, you sure can sense like a change of environment, a change of atmosphere in the pits because people all kind of cast their votes. You know what I mean? And you talk about some tension. I mean, that was already an extremely tense environment. Mike and I have talked about this a little bit on the show in the past, that anytime you go to a No Prep Kings event, you sense a Survivor Island kind of mentality where everybody knows that they're there because they've been requested. You know what I mean? And they can be discharged at any moment. And it's very interesting how that affects kind of the vibe and how everybody, interacts. I can't imagine taking something that was already like hovering around and aiding a draft, a popularity contest on top of it,
on it.
right?
Yeah.
But
classic
also
reality TV.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just absolutely classic. But I think there's been some controversy in the past couple of years about the team thing, because they came in, the team thing originated outside of No Prep Kings, right? And then they come into No Prep Kings and they've got this quasi team deal going where it's every driver for themselves, but certain people are expected to take dives for certain people because they're on the same team from back in the day or have always raced together. And I get that. And it's created drama of its own. Most notably, we talk about Pat and Lizzie and Jerry Bird and that whole deal. But I think it's smart to kind of either go completely away from that or lean into it and actually have official teams.
Yeah, I mean,
which is what
they were already
here.
teaming up, Yeah,
they were teaming up, but then there was
Yeah.
this drama that was in like, we're teammates, but we're not really teammates. That's from the past. But now it's like, we are. This is your official team, and you have to race as a team. So it's really going to be interesting.
I'm anxious to see how it plays out. I got to be honest. I wish the NHRA would have had a fantastic, glorious sunshiny weekend up in New Hampshire, because it would have been cool to kind of just be able to measure the respective like buzz that was surrounding either event simultaneously. And I guess we're going to get that opportunity this coming weekend at the NHRA national event in Bristol, Tennessee, while No Prep Kings rolls into Virginia Motorsports Park for their second stop of the season. But I will say that I was shocked by how much hubbub and how much conversation and how many people seemed to be tuned in to what was going on at the No Prep Kings event, because I believe this thing has far exceeded anybody's expectations for lifespan. I mean, it has mine, not because it wasn't great or anything like that, but just historically, you don't see these reality kind of television show deals last this long. I mean, this seems like it's been going on a long, long time. And I guess maybe this is its new life beyond the original Street Outlaws.
It has to evolve. And the draft is the latest evolution of this series within a series, right? So and you see these reality shows do this a lot, and they'll just introduce a new format, rule changes in sports. A lot of times, JT, you were talking earlier about the baseball pitch clock. Yep. These organizations know or hear what's going on and kind of have their ear to the ground to the changes they need to make to stay relevant. And that, to me, not that this deal wasn't relevant, but they knew they needed to spice it up, change it up a little bit going into the sixth season.
Well, and clearly it worked.
Some of these reality shows, though, they do have staying power, but a lot of that is the cast. Like, if you can keep that cast together that everybody fell in love with at first, I think you have a better chance of success down the road. If you lose that cast and you're trying to recast all the time, well, they're not making relationships with those people. They're not relating to those people, I guess you'd say. Maybe we kind of talked about it with NASCAR, like on some of the viewership, the hard times they went through. They lost their cast, a while back. They had so many people retire right around the same time that all these devoted fans have lost their guy, and then even they wanted to switch over someone. Oh, well, he retired too, and then you got all these new faces, and it's hard. I think it's just hard for people to go ahead and just, jump off of one bandwagon onto another one.
You nailed it, man. Keeping the cast of characters intact. And it's so funny because doesn't that completely fly in the face of this belief? Like, because I saw this over the weekend. I saw a comment on social that it said something to the effect of like, is it just me or is it the same old people going to every NHRA national event? Right. And it's funny because we have this established cast of characters. Same guys showing up for decades at NHRA Top Fuel. Same guys showing up for over a decade in NHRA Funny Car. Same guys showing up for over a decade in NHRA Pro Stock. Yet the fans want to see fresh faces. They want to see new people. And I think it's interesting, and it kind of is it's a glimpse into the problem, is that we haven't gotten to know any of these people.
That's
because I think if we got to know these people, you wouldn't want them to change. Because that's right. You do a few, but for the most part, these are just names on the side of windows, and we don't know how these people behave. Because you make a great point, man. If you look at all these housewife shows and all those Bravo shows. I mean, they're however many years in, however many seasons into those things, and they've clearly worked really hard to keep that cast together.
Catch. I mean, I don't even know what season they're on that thing. Like, fucking 33 or something. I don't know. I mean, it's fun.
You have to keep the cast together, like sequels. To me, like when they come out with like a sequel or the third movie in a series, and it's none of the original cast. It's like, why is this even the same movie? It's just a money grab at that point.
I mean, I think it's another shining example of the NHRA has so many of the things it needs in place. They're already there. Like, you've already got these guys that are committed. You don't got to worry about getting everybody to fall in love with character A and then him not showing up, right? I mean, they've demonstrated that they're coming. They're going to come to every single race. And I think that that's part of what I get excited about, is that there's so much opportunity that still exists out there. Like, despite how far we've come, despite all the positives that we talk about here, man, there's a long way to go. I mean, you talk about Matt Hagan's got 68,000 followers on Facebook. Ron Cass has 158,000. I mean, look at those names that I mentioned a moment ago. I mean, there's TV show racers that have bigger following. That's possible. You can't tell me that these guys are just that much less interesting. You can't tell me that these guys are just that much less cool or less relatable. I mean, sure, there's some differences, right? I mean, you've got guys that are a little bit more clean cut, a little bit more refined on the NHRA side. But I mean, going back to the Bravo situation, all of those people are living in mansions, driving cars the viewers can't afford, wearing clothes the viewers can't afford, right? I mean, it's not about relatability. It's about aspirational, right?
To me, it's about camera time, screen time. Yeah. And to me, the big difference that like Murder Nova, I think you said you had what, 3.1 million, 3.5 million, 3.5 million. For as long as Matt Hagan's been racing, how much less time do you think he spent on camera than Murder Nova?
True.
Like exponentially more time for Murder Nova. And it's just how much time, but how much longer has Matt Hagan's car been on camera? You know? Yeah. And so it's like, again, not saying that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just a different
because that's something that a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't want that. You know, I mean,
because that's what I was just getting ready to say.
That would say, you know, well, I mean, look at how many divorces and stuff come from reality TV, and you know, and I mean, a lot of times these people are only on for a couple, 2-3 years, and they're having all kinds of problems. You know, because I think they're not used to the stardom first. You know, so now all of a sudden they're a star, and they're probably not prepared for that whatsoever.
I mean, that's the other thing that I was just getting ready to say is I saw a post from Jim Howe, who is part of Justin Swanstrom's team. And it was on Facebook, and it was like, guys, thanks for all the calls and the support. I'm not ignoring anyone. It's just that we have a job to do. Filming and tuning multiple cars, plus my own, is no easy task. If I called you back when I finally got free, it would be around 3 a.m. And by then I'm ready to go to sleep. And I think that's, you hit on something there, that camera time that you talked about, Mike, and with Murder Nova and whatnot. Do these guys want it? Right? I mean, because that's the other thing, is maybe the flip side of that argument is that, you know, someone like Matt Hagan is earning a living, driving a race car, doing what he wants to do, living out his dream, and he doesn't have to be filming at 2:00 in the morning. You know, so there's a balance, you know, and there is a big difference.
And you get wore out from it. Like we've talked about just doing this podcast, or just let's say you're traveling in a truck or whatever, you're on. You know, you're on all the time. You're at PRI or SEMA. You're on all day long. You know, you're on at night because you're going to run into somebody, you know, when you're eating or at the bar or whatever. So you're on all this time. And when it's done, you're just like drained because you've had to be on this whole time. And so those guys, I'm sure, are experiencing that times 10. You know,
I mean, I think that's why you see people bail, right? I mean, how frequently do you see it where, I mean, going back to reality, Real World and Road Rules and Jersey Shore, you'd have people that like they're superstars, making money, endorsements, all this stuff, and they just exit stage left, right? They're out. They just don't want it anymore.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. So it's, you know, I don't want to completely like, you know, crap on everything, because there's the level of stardom and success that a lot of the folks on the NHRA side of life enjoy without having to do that dance is pretty incredible, right? Yeah. I mean, because I know that personally, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like
maybe I can get on Big Brother and just go in there and just talk drag racing with everybody and just see how much I can get in before they kick me off.
Yeah, kick you off. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and I think it's a fun thing to talk about. But even having those problems is like such a good thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like even being able, like that's the definition of first world problems, you know, that you don't have as many. You're driving a nitro funny car. You know what I mean? You're doing a full tour. You're sponsored by Dodge and all these things. But yeah, we don't have as many followers.
So what do you think about heading into this weekend with this doubleheader? I guess they're going to run it. We don't have the details yet as far as how it's going to go, but we've got, I guess the fields are locked in, and then we're just going to start eliminations either in qualifying or the day before at Bristol, and then go right into the actual Bristol event. I think it's going to be, I haven't looked at the weather, which can be very hit or miss at Bristol also, but that could be a hell of an event that they've got coming up this weekend.
I think it's going to be good, man. I mean, we always talk about what can be done to make qualifying more consequential and more impactful to the race. Well, you don't have to do anything more than make qualifying elimination rounds. So no, I don't know the details. I guess they haven't announced exactly how they're going to handle all this, but no, it's going to be, Bristol's such a unique environment. It's one of these bigger grandstand tracks, but it's still a relatively small amount of space there. And I think the unique sound and the unique visuals, I mean, it's one where it kind of is the exception, I think, to the big track rule, right? That big, beautiful tower and the big, beautiful grandstands and the way it's nestled in between, you know, the valley of two mountains. It's
weather looks
so
fantastic
spectacular
right now, actually.
I'm trying to pull up the
Thursday through Saturday. Then Sundays, it looks a little dicey as of right now, but
all right. So we had 18 cars show up in Pro Modified. Some people we haven't seen in a while. Chuck Little, I was surprised to see his name on the list. We had Eric Dillard there filling in for Kevin Rivenbark. Ken Cartuccio. I think that was probably what I was the most excited about, was to see the Wallace family 55 Chevy in competition out there. I was really looking forward to seeing what that car would do in quarter mile competition. It's a car that I've definitely got my eye on as far as like World Series of Pro Mod is concerned. I mean,
they need to give all the weight breaks to that thing.
They really need to do whatever
that thing can do
to make that car be competitive. Mike Thielen, longtime friend of Drag Illustrated, taking the #1 qualifying spot which was
awesome to see.
What was really one of the only really good runs. Went 583 at 244. Great to see him. I think that's his career first #1 qualifier.
Oh, yeah, he's got a DI crew shirt.
Yeah, JT's got a Glacier Aviation crew shirt, jersey swap.
We did a jersey swap about 2 a.m. one morning.
We saw, I think Tyler Miller qualified 5th, 6th, somewhere up toward the top of the field, subbing for Mason Wright. So that was good to see.
Well, I mean, the thing that I guess that I take away from it is, what do we got? 1, 2, Mike Thielen, roots blower. Mm-hmm. Mike Castellano, roots blower. Tyler Miller, roots blower. So, I mean, I think that's kind of interesting that to see that combination. I think we're going to see that combo be very fast. I mean, obviously competitive. That run that what's his name? Mason Wright was on in Chicago before he got into the wall. Unfortunately, if you look at the short time and what that thing did to the 330, it was going to go #1. If it would have made the trip, you know, it would have been low qualifier. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think fans can kind of keep their eyes on that roots combination, because there's a lot of hubbub around the Pro Mod rules right now, but I actually think they're pretty close.
Yeah, you're gonna have a one wild card in there too. Mr. Bristol Dragway legend himself, Tricky Ricky Smith. A track that I don't think you can race at Bristol. You can't have a race at Bristol without Ricky being there. I'm pretty sure
they named the grandstands.
They don't open the gates until he rolls in.
Yeah, they named the grandstands after the dude. So I would be shocked if they would let a race happen without him being on the property. I will tell you that the NHRA Pro Mod series, in my opinion, is missing Ricky's presence. For the I know the drama that he can oftentimes produce. Man, he kept people talking about pro modified drag racing, about NHRA Pro Mod, and it's he may not know it. Ricky Smith may not know it, but he's a promoter. He's a showman. And I think one of the ways Ricky puts on a show, whether people like it or not, or agree or disagree, his willingness to speak publicly and to share his thoughts and feelings and ruffle feathers and say whatever he thinks, that is a huge, huge, huge victory for the sport of drag racing. And it has driven the conversation for a long time. As long as I can remember following the NHRA Pro Modified series, to be honest, it seems like Ricky and his thoughts on the rules and how Ricky's running has been a big part of it. And I think we're seeing that this year, like despite the success they're having, and we're seeing the car counts come back to where we want them, where we expect them to be. I would say it does feel like there's not as much conversation without the Ricky Smith kind of perpetual stirring of the pot. Do you agree, Mike? Like it feels like we're seeing.
Don't you think some of that is, you know, Ricky's doing this for a living, so you know these rule changes and stuff affects what he makes basically, right? I mean that's how you could look at it. Where someone else may not be, you know, as I'm not saying it's not important to him, but this is what he is doing for a living.
Yeah.
So
that's always been the case with Ricky. Yes. We talk about it all the time. Anytime anyone has a situation with him where they didn't sign an autograph or something while he's busy, it's because he's working, man. I mean, that's his job. And his sponsors, he's actually sponsored and gets paid to go to these events. That's why he's going to Bristol. I think Charlotte, Bristol, and a couple others are on his NHRA schedule for this year. And then obviously the PDRA events. So, you know, that determines where he races and why he races. So yeah, you're exactly right, JT. But if you look at the entry list, there's actually quite a few on there that we haven't seen in a race or two. Billy Banica is on there. We've got Dwayne Wolf, Jericho Baldoff, a handful of others. So they're actually, I don't see that. I don't have the number here, but there are quite a few cars already pre-entered in for Bristol.
And that's exciting, man. That's what we need. That NHRA series is. There's no doubt in my mind that, quarter mile drag racing, that's the final frontier for most of these guys. And it's great to see that level of participation. I'm trying to pull up the event info.
I don't know why they've got it listed here, but they don't tell you
they never put the number.
I got to add these up.
Yeah.
The math is not my thing, guys.
I was going to pull it up. Here we go.
I'm an art major.
We can tell.
I dropped out of school. Let me see. Are you going to count it? I want to count it. I just like to know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, because if I get it wrong, I'm going to get roasted on this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Are you guys counting? I don't even know what you're counting.
I got 18. 18 Pro Mod cars.
Okay.
So, hey, I got 18 Pro Mod cars headed to Bristol. I'm sure anybody that's on this list that wasn't planning on going, but went to Epping is going to be there, right? If they qualified.
I got 20.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? They need to number these. Like NHRA, can you put a number beside?
Yeah, can you number these? That'd be great.
Yeah, can you number these? That'd be fantastic. But no, I'm glad to see it back to where it once was. And I know that their goal was to, like, by Indy be back around that 30 car number. They've obviously got some work to do, but I do think that they're doing a lot of the right things. I mean, they're active on social. They're pushing. I'm seeing more autograph sessions, more fan interaction than I've probably ever seen from the Pro Mod series. But it is, JT, you make probably the ultimate point that is something that we're always going to fight against.
Don't blow him up too much.
I'm not. But how many of these guys don't race for a living? And it is hard to overcome that. I mean, I even go back to a couple of weeks ago, we were struggling to get Justin Bond scheduled to be on the show because he had a business meeting. And and that is just an example of the situation that exists. This is their hobby. I mean, and they obviously do it at a professional level. They're obviously massively invested. It's not that they don't take it seriously. They test, they take it crazy seriously. Absolutely. But it's still secondary to what they do for a living. And that is one of the things that is always going to hinder us. It's so hard
to race for a living, at the highest level. These are professionals. And I mean, Ricky's done it. But there's not a whole lot of people that probably could.
It's damn near impossible at this point, outside of the handful of guys.
I like
handful. That's a new one.
Like
handful goes together. Handful of guys in all the pro ranks, really, and I think Ricky's the only one in Pro Mod.
Man, it's trying to earn a living doing this, and I think that's there. It can be done. Right. I mean, there's clearly examples, but you have to be finding a way. I think one of the examples that come to mind for me is like Stevie Fast Jackson. He's had to transition from driving, right, and transition into tuning a car, and to providing that service to a well-to-do businessman, one of these independently wealthy
I think
team
we'll
owners,
see Ricky do
racers.
That at some point also. I think we'll see him transition to probably putting someone in his stuff. And keeping all of his rig and his operation maybe as intact as he can into like a quasi retirement, and then he's tuning somebody. I mean,
look at Todd Tutterow. I mean, Todd Tutterow has YO Motorsports is like a sizable operation at this point in time. I mean, that is a group. They're working on so many race cars. It's hard to. I mean, at the World Series of Pro Mod, I think we had to pit 5 or 6 teams together because Todd was tuning all of them. And that is kind of the pathway to success.
Isn't this funny though?
Because these people right now,
this is like 2 complete opposite ways to race, for a living. Like we're talking about Todd Tutterow and Ricky Smith, who, probably they're not on social media marketing themselves constantly and have these huge followings that we just mentioned for all these other no prep guys, right? Who have used the television. And the show to help market their name and make their name a brand, like say Justin, he's made, Swan Gang a brand now, but you talk about complete opposite ways of doing it, between those two.
Yeah. That's the more traditional route, which speaking of Tutterow, that reminded me that we've got Tony Wilson subbing in for Jason Lee, who was going to sub in only for Bristol, but now that Epping is going to be moved to Bristol, he's going to be in there for both races.
What do you think of that
in the Coast packing car?
What do you make of that? So for those that don't know, the NHRA introduced a new rule for the Pro Mod Series in 2023, where a car essentially earns points. The points stay with the car.
You could sub a driver twice throughout the year and not lose points. You could put someone else in your car, which actually, speaking to Tony earlier in the week, this situation with Epping being moved to Bristol does not count against that. So Tony subbing in the car for essentially both Epping and Bristol is only going to count as one sub.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, and that makes sense though, because it wasn't intentional, right? I mean, Jason Lee was in Epping. So I wonder, sometimes I feel like that just contributes to this issue. Like, I see the upside of it. I see it being exciting for someone like Jose Gonzalez, who, travels a lot, or, is traveling internationally and sometimes contends with, obstacles that are insurmountable, and there's no chance that he's going to be able to make a race. And it's hard for him to stay excited or stay committed if he can't feel like he's competing for a championship, because he's going to miss a couple of races.
What about somebody like Stan Shelton, who's got pulling sometimes conflicting with drag racing? And I know they do quite a dance to make it all happen, but maybe at some point it's the best option for him to look at putting someone in that car for a race, so he can go do the pulling deal where he's also highly successful. So I'm looking at this list of entries, and you could see a situation where a lot of these guys would take advantage of it.
Right. I don't like it. I don't think I like it though. I don't know. I mean, I know it takes a team to win, but I don't know.
Happens all the time in NASCAR, man. Look at what happened this past weekend with the whole Chase Elliott deal, and they put someone else in that car, and then I think they had to put, because that guy was a sub in some other car, they put a sub in for a sub in whatever other car. I mean, they sub drivers all the time in other forms of racing, and the teams still field the car and go out there because the car collects points.
I think it would be cool to have, and we actually talked about doing this a long time ago in the NHRA Pro Mod Series, was do like the Formula One Constructors Cup, where there's like there's a car championship, and then there's a driver championship. And I do feel that, I just imagine if the car that wins the championship or the driver that wins the championship is somebody who missed 2 races. I do think it's going to be hard not to put an asterisk by that.
Yeah, that'd be weird, right?
Yeah, I just think that I'm not a championship's a championship, No,
I mean, you can go win the Super Bowl, but if you miss a few games, you're not going to win the MVP.
You still get that ring.
Yeah, you still get that ring.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it is what it is. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I do wonder sometimes, and I've thought a lot about that. The PDRA has kind of trended towards something like that with the Pro Boost, the Boost Wars and the Nitrous Wars, and this kind of engine builder ongoing challenge. And I've liked that because I think it does give kind of another thing to talk about, another storyline, another thing for the media to latch on to, another thing to kind of get people excited or get people talking. But it is, I don't know, it's a very interesting thing personally. I can go either way on it. It's something that they have been fighting for. The racers have wanted that rule for a decade, literally. They've pressed for it because, the NHRA Pro Mod Series is comprised almost entirely of, small, independent, wealthy or business owners. So I'm not at all surprised that finally happened. I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about it. What do you guys think about rolling into the summer, right? I mean, it's hard to believe that we're headed into the 90, 100-degree race day weekends where we're going to really see people. I'm excited for this time of year. I know it's not the most fun for fans and it's a challenge for racers, but I do feel like you really start to see who's who when the track conditions start to go away and you're racing in rough. You're going to see some surprises. You're going to see some guys barely get in and then go on to win the race. I think it narrows it narrows the window a little bit. It evens the playing field, I think, for the lesser funded or the kind of lower tier teams that are scrappers that are good racers. They can go out there and, leverage experience and
tune the track. And
I don't know.
Weather's been odd this year, though.
It has been.
Looking at the weather for Bristol usually marks, all right, this is the start of summer. It's usually a week later. I think it's usually on Father's Day. So, but it's here. It is June. It's Bristol. It's usually hot and very, very tricky. It's going to be like 72 for a high.
Isn't that crazy
this weekend? And a low of 48. And so, it's
holy
it's
moly.
I'm sure we're due for a massive heat wave to make up for it. But
I'm kind of bracing for impact down here in Texas.
You didn't type in Missouri when you were looking at that.
It's no joke, man.
No, Bristol, Tennessee, bud.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Thunder Valley is what I typed in.
Hey, real quick though, Jay, let's pay some more bills and remind everybody, keep our buddy Mark Beatty happy. Let me remind everybody that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. Guys, we're kind of headed towards the end of the show here. It's crazy. Not only does time fly on the calendar, but it flies right here on this very show. Let's touch on a couple more things before we call it a day. I guess looking forward to the No Prep Kings next stop in Virginia, that one of the big storylines coming out of Ohio was that Ryan Martin, for the first time in the show's history, didn't win the season opener, which I think could bode well for the show as a whole. I mean, I think that was one of the things that people were really latching onto, is that Ryan was such a dominating force, back-to-back, or what is it, back-to-back series championships?
Spoiler alerts, man.
Oh, sorry.
Damn. I used to listen to Wes Buck Show every week until he spoiled the first race of MPK.
It's fine. People know what happens. Yeah. It's all over. It was great to see Kayla Morton. She kind of came on strong late in 2022.
Yeah, man.
Clearly has a hot rod this year.
You know, she was she was like the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Hold on.
Really?
4th. She was the 4th overall pick in the first round of the draft, which I thought was kind of interesting, but Daddy Dave knew what he was doing with that deal.
Clearly.
Right off the bat. Not that she didn't deserve it, but you know, he knew. I wonder how much these guys have been in communication with each other about, I've been working on this, or I've been testing, I'm running good this, to start the year, and how much that played into it.
They're all very active on social media.
Well, and
she
was Daddy Dave's first pick, right?
Yeah, and you can probably see what a lot of these guys have been doing.
How about Jerry Bird being picked so early by Disco Dean Carnes? I was
really
a new
surprised.
car,
new combo.
I think that's it. I think a lot of people knew that those guys are very able-bodied racers, have good power, but they had outdated equipment as far as a race car is concerned. He rolls out with a brand new car, and I think people expect him to be a contender. Mike Murillo, who was his pick? Scott Taylor, who went to the finals.
Yep.
Another team that I know has been testing a lot. Scott Taylor, we need to get him here on the show because he's a great guy, fun to talk to, super good dude. I was kind of looking at some of the other top picks. Sean Murder Nova Ellington, his number 1 pick was Jeff Lutz. Not surprised there. Those guys are close friends.
And how much of it do you think it plays into it, that reliability, and that they're going to be at every race, and that they're not, on the verge of not being able to do this? Like that's got to be
big.
Yeah, because that's the first race of the season, kicks off 5 races in a row, 5 weekends in a row that these guys are going to be racing. Now they do get, I believe, like the entire month of July off to rebuild all their because it's going to be completely destroyed by then.
I tip my cap to every one of these guys because that is so difficult. I mean, it's difficult to do any sort of race in 5 weeks in a row.
They go
but
5 weeks
heads
in a row.
up racing in basically pro mod cars.
Yeah, they end up at Epping July 1st, and then they don't have another race until it looks like, is it Tulsa, August 11th?
Most of these guys, I mean, it's such a unique environment when you go on stretches like that, because you're having to service the car on the road, right? You're shipping parts to racetracks. You're not shipping parts to your shop or your house or, your chassis guy. You're having to do all this stuff on the fly, and it takes what is already very difficult and adds another layer of difficulty that I don't, again, whenever people, I mean, we've talked about it here, obviously show first. It's been discussed ad nauseum at this point that it's a TV show first, but you cannot take anything away from the effort that this group of people is putting in to go drag racing. I mean, it is absolutely on par with any pro operation. I mean, that's a big bite, man. That's a big bite.
It is. Yep.
5 back-to-back races in a row. I mean, literally, I saw Justin Swanstrom, posted up at VMP earlier today, shipping out merch, servicing the car. I mean, that's quite the endeavor, right? Yeah. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, you talk about the want to. I don't know how many people want to do that, right? I mean, it may look good and you may make some money selling merch, but holy moly, is he spinning it. You know, he put something on social earlier this year that he was like, so far he'd spent $270,000 or something.
Yeah,
you know,
I remember
racing
that,
this
yeah.
year, and it's
Yeah.
People fail to maybe understand, and I think that's one of the things that I would love to see get extinguished is this notion that all this is like good old boys. They are, but I mean, this is extremely expensive, super high level stuff across the board. I mean, you got guys bringing out a new car every season or a new look every season,
or two cars,
They've cars.
Got multiple guys now carrying two cars just in case.
You know,
man,
I mean,
even if you can get people to volunteer to be on your crew,
yeah,
you know, to help you out. I mean, it's still expensive by the end of 4 or 5 days.
Gosh, man.
And paying for food and everything else and hotel rooms. And I mean, geez.
Oh, it really is absolutely insane, guys. Well, hey, man, we've wrapped up. We've blown through all the things that we wanted to cover here. I wanted to make sure that we got made our point on the fact that I think drag racing is doing really well. What else? Was there anything else? I know JT before the show, he's like, oh, dude, do you really want to talk about this again? I'm like, no, man, there are still people out there that think that we're in some sort of crisis.
No,
mode.
Wes asked, now tell me if I'm beating a dead horse, which is kind of cool, like, don't really answer it. And JT jumped right. Oh, yeah, you know, we talk about it quite a bit.
Well, hey, man, it just shocks me. And I just want to, I just think it's worth talking about, man. It's so easy to poke holes and shit. It just is. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to find the negatives, you know?
Like cherry pick your photos that you put together or your perspectives and create a case. And like you were saying, JT, off air before we started, it's like all the outrage about something like that today. And then by tomorrow, it's just lost in the noise. No one even cares, follows up on it.
It's nuts how it works anymore. Yeah. You know, it's like, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be political or anything else. It's this big to do today and tomorrow, nothing.
Nothing. Nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's on to the next thing. And it speaks to, that is an issue.
It's the news cycle, man.
It's the news cycle.
We always used to call it the 24-hour cable news cycle. Now it's just social media. That's what.
Right. Like, you don't even know if you can believe any of it.
When have you ever watched Anchorman 2 and just think about a time prior to the 24-hour news? Like, because they're like, hey, we've got this idea. We're going to play the news all day, every day. And they're like, you can't do that. You can only talk about the news once at 5, or once a day. And it's so crazy because now I get mad when we don't have something posted on our website like every hour of the day, every day. You know what I mean? And it's like that. It's so incredibly difficult to keep that pace up. But that is the world we live in today. I mean, it's people.
But then you're doing that, it's pushing that other story way down, out of sight and out of mind.
Oh, it's really incredible, man.
And God help you if you have to go back and find something on Facebook.
Oh my God.
That you saw. I think that's what that little bookmark is for on Facebook. I figured this out. I'm like, why do I want to bookmark this? It's because if I literally scroll too far down
and you better have a supercomputer because it's
I'm never going to see this again.
I feel my laptop getting hotter. You know what I mean? Like the further the fans kick on.
Yeah. It's like levitating on my desk,
If you scroll too fast past it, hey, I might want to check that out again. Good luck, dude. The shit's gone.
It's gone forever, man. It really is. Well, tons of racing going on, as we said. And I just think that the ultimate reminder here is that these really are high times for the sport of drag racing. It gets mentioned all the time. Every time I go to a racetrack or bump into somebody, the good old days, the good old days that. Well, I'm telling you, we are living in them right now. These are the good old days of drag racing. Guys, you got anything else? Where are you off to next? You're within driving distance of Bristol, Mike. You could hop in with old Brett Underwood, right? You could roll down with him. Brett's, I believe, bringing a couple thousand copies of DI.
He put me on the roof. He put me in his truck bed. He wouldn't let me ride with him. Oh
no, he would love to have you ride. I'm gonna tell you,
he's got that thing loaded down with 1,000 magazines. I know. Headed to Bristol. So get your copy there. He's got the new World Series of Pro Mod issue.
He's probably got to at least take 3 cases of cigars to every race too.
Yes.
Oh, he takes probably 50, 100. I bet to every race he goes to. There's no doubt in my mind. It's hard to beat. Like, I think cigars are good.
He's pushing them on everybody, giving them kids. Hey, kid, you want a cigar?
No, it's so funny. I don't know how he carries so many. You know what I mean? He carries so many on him at any given time. It's kind of unbelievable. But anyways, guys, hey, thanks a bunch for joining us. Thanks for being a part of this conversation each and every week. A reminder to click like, click share, click subscribe. Help us spread the gospel of drag racing. And we'll see you next week right here on the Drag Illustrated Facebook and YouTube page, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, guys. Thanks a bunch. I appreciate y'all.
All right. Yep. Later,
Thanks,
y'all.
y'all.
Let's do it.